Listen to Thomas Tuchel.
Does it help that the owner is also a sporting director or an interim sporting director? Does it make it simpler in a way, or?
Yeah, it keeps the group smaller. It's maybe simpler, but in general, I think it's very demanding for our owner to be also a sporting director. So I don't know if it's a long-term solution.
Chelsea fans are tired. They're not confused. They're not impatient. Just tired.
Coming into a club where everyone did love the previous manager.
I actually said to the board in the first phone call, are you sure of doing this? Because
really?
They will not like you.
For 3 straight years now, the same questions, the same excuses. A new manager comes in, talks about the project, asks for patience, and then slowly realizes the job really isn't his. The decisions are already made. The squad is already shaped. The Chelsea fans have seen this movie too many times. That's why the initial reaction to Liam Rossinier wasn't one of excitement. It was one of indifference, even skepticism. To a lot of fans, he doesn't feel like a fresh start. He feels like the next name in line. Another coach brought in because he'll work within the system instead of challenging it.
Liam Rossini comes in, he's just a yes man to the board of what they want to do and how they want to run things, how they want to do it.
He knows what they expect. He's worked in the confines of that group now.
Fans watched Enzo Maresca win trophies and still walk away because he wasn't getting back. They watched him publicly hint at problems and eventually hit the same wall every manager before him hit.
Worst 48 hours since I joined the club because people didn't support me and the team.
When a coach with momentum, goodwill, and success still can't move the needle upstairs, why should anyone believe the next one will? That's the core frustration. It's not about Rossinier as a coach, it's about Blueco as owners. Since Chelsea are owned by an investment fund now, the priority isn't to win, it's to make money. Fans don't trust the process, and they have every right to doubt the owners when you look at their track record in the past few years. When Todd Boehly and the Blueco group took over Chelsea in 2022, Chelsea fans were worried. Abramovich's run was full of trophy, and now they were being replaced by baseball-loving Yankees. Blueco's first months were not the best. All the important people behind the scenes left. Marina, Cech, the whole structure basically got ripped out. And Boehly even made himself interim sporting director for a bit. The spending was wild too. Chelsea dropped over £250 million in the first summer like it was nothing. Almost trying to recreate the old Abramovich days, but without the same plan or experience. And because everything was moving so fast, weird stuff kept happening. Boehly reportedly talked about a 4-4-3 formation at one point when discussing tactics with Tuchel. To this day, I don't know how true these reports are, but with Americans, it's not hard to believe that somebody might have pretended like they know more about something than they actually do. It was clear that this was going to be a roller coaster. The first big shock came early. Thomas Tuchel was sacked just a few games into the 2022-2023 season.
We have some very big and dramatic news from the world of football, which is that Chelsea Football Club have just sacked their manager, Thomas Tuchel. Obviously, Thomas Tuchel oversaw last night's unexpected defeat. 1-0 they lost in the Champions League to Dinamo Zagreb. That was actually Thomas Tuchel's 100th game in charge of Chelsea, and he said after the match, we're clearly not where we should be, and that is on me. So
this is the guy who had won them the Champions League, and he was loved by the fans. But behind the scenes, things were getting messy. One big issue was Boehly wanted Cristiano Ronaldo. Tuchel, having a brain, said no. And the relationship basically fell apart from there. Communications broke down, and Chelsea fired him in September. Fans were stunned. They were confused. A lot of them were very scared about the club's direction. Then came Graham Potter. Everyone sold this as a long-term project.
Chelsea have appointed Graham Potter as their new head coach, replacing Thomas Tuchel.
You had a smart English coach who had overachieved with Brighton. He had modern ideas, he was good with the young player. And in all fairness, he actually started well. Chelsea went 9 games unbeaten and even beat AC Milan twice in the Champions League. But that good run didn't last. By January, Chelsea had brought in so many players that Potter couldn't even pick a consistent starting 11. Injuries, low confidence, and constant pressure killed the atmosphere. The breaking point was the 4-1 loss to Brighton, Graham Potter's old team, and everything snowballed from there. Chelsea kept sliding down the table, fans were booing at home games, and the whole place felt miserable.
Get out! Get out! Guys, it's enough! 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 I had enough of this Graham asshole Potter!
By April, Chelsea were stuck in 11th place, and Potter looked totally overwhelmed. Bowley finally sacked him.
Graham Potter, he has been sacked by Chelsea this Sunday evening. This news just released in the last few seconds by the club following that home defeat to Aston Villa on Saturday, which left Chelsea in the bottom half of the Premier League table.
Potter left with just 12 wins in 31 games, which for a squad that expensive and at the level of Chelsea is brutal. To calm things down, the Blues did the most Chelsea thing ever. They brought Frank Lampard back as interim manager. Fans hoped that his presence would fix things, to at least make the team enjoyable to watch towards the tail end of the season. It didn't. Lampard even admitted that the job felt like babysitting a broken team. Chelsea lost 8 out of 11 games with him. They finished the season in 12th with just 44 points, the lowest total the club had ever had in the Premier League. They only scored 38 league goals all year and had a negative goal difference. It was officially their worst Premier League season ever. Finishing bottom half also meant no European football for the first time in over 20 years. 2 years ago, they were Champions League winners. Now they look like Ange's Tottenham.
It's just who we are, mate.
So going into the summer of 2023, everyone knew that Chelsea needed a full reset. They needed a new plan, new structure, and someone who actually knew how to run the football side. Bowley took a step back, hired proper sporting directors, and the club made a huge decision. They brought in Mauricio Pochettino. He was supposed to steady the ship and bring some normal football back after the chaos. Fans were cautiously optimistic. After the disaster of a season they just watched, anything stable sounded like heaven. But Chelsea still had a long, messy road ahead. When Mauricio Pochettino showed up in the summer of 2023, his job was very clear. Fix the mess and make Chelsea look like a real football team again. He had the resume for it. Former Spurs and PSG manager. He was great with young players, had a calm personality. Everybody remembered how good his Spurs teams were. Chelsea needed somebody exactly like that. The squad was full of young, raw talents who needed direction. The first big difference under Poch happened behind the scenes. Unlike the wild, unplanned shopping sprees from the previous seasons, the 2023 summer window actually had some structure to it. The new sporting directors worked closely with Poch to trim the squad down and get rid of big names who didn't fit the project. Dave, Conte, and Kovacic all moved on. Chelsea kept leaning into their young squad plan too, spending over £400 million on players under 25. Caicedo arrived for a record fee, Nkunku was brought in for creativity, and Nicholas Jackson came in as a young striker option. Of course, the squad was still massive. Poch had to split training into 2 separate groups because he just had so many different players. It was a little crazy, but at least this time there was a plan. As for the results, well, the start of the 2023-2024 season was rocky. Chelsea weren't magically gonna go from 12th to title challengers overnight. They were still inconsistent, still dropping silly points. And their new signing Nkunku got injured before the season even started, which was a huge blow. That basically left Chelsea without a proper goal scorer for the first stretch of the season. Of course, luckily for them, Palmer ended up stepping up. In the beginning of the season, Chelsea sat around mid-table, and fans had a moment of panic again. Were they really gonna have back-to-back seasons in the bottom half of the table? But the key difference compared to the Potter era mess was that things were improving slowly. The vibes behind the scene weren't toxic anymore. The players looked fitter, the system made more sense. The young guys started growing into their roles. Pochettino didn't panic. He stayed calm and steady, and I believe that helped the squad settle. After the final break, Chelsea finally started to get into their rhythm. They went on a big run in the Carabao Cup, making it all the way to the final. They also reached the FA Cup semi-final. Even though they didn't win either competition, just getting deeper into both tournaments was a huge step forward compared to the year before. It showed that the team could actually compete again. Their league form picked up too. Chelsea put together a strong end to the season, winning 5 in a row to finish the year. And on the final day, they beat Bournemouth 2-1 to secure 6th place. Sure, it wasn't title challenging football, but considering how low they were 12 months earlier, it was a massive improvement. 6th place meant European football was back. They were scoring goals again, and the team looked alive. It was a season with plenty of struggles, but one that ended on a genuinely positive note. Chelsea fans could finally feel like their club had a future again. But because this is Chelsea, the drama wasn't finished. Even though the team improved, Pochettino didn't sound super confident about his future in the end of the season interview. He said stuff like, "My future's up to the owners," which felt weird. Rumors spread that he and the board didn't fully agree on what the next steps of the rebuild should look like. Maybe Pochettino wanted more control, or the board simply didn't see him as a long-term candidate for what they wanted in their project. Who knows? Whatever the real story was, Chelsea announced just days after the season ended that Pochettino was leaving by mutual consent. After 11 months, the partnership was over.
Big breaking news this evening comes from Chelsea. Kaveh Solokol, what is it? Mauricio Pochettino is leaving Chelsea by mutual agreement. But what happened basically is the season ended. Yesterday, he had a meeting with the two sporting directors at Chelsea. They both felt that things weren't working, they were on different paths, and that is why they have decided that Mauricio Pochettino is going to leave the club.
Naturally, a lot of fans were surprised. It looked like Poch had earned another season, but the split seemed amicable. Pochettino thanked the owners and said the club was in a good place to keep growing. And to be honest, he was right. Chelsea were in a much better position when he left than when he first got there. He brought professionalism back, he gave the young squad structure and confidence. He made the club feel stable again. So even though he left quickly, he very much laid the foundation. And those foundations were exactly what Chelsea needed for the real comeback that was about to happen next.
While to get this one over the line, but Enzo Maresca is set to be announced as the new Chelsea head coach today on a 5-year contract.
Maresca was Chelsea's #1 choice on a shortlist that included Thomas Frank, Kieran McKenna and Roberto De Zerbi.
When Enzo Maresca showed up in the summer of 2024, most casual fans didn't really know who he was. He wasn't a big name. He wasn't a superstar manager. He was Pep Guardiola's former assistant, so a lot of people thought he's just chicken farm Pep. He had just taken Leicester back to the Premier League, but that's basically all the headlines people knew. So when Chelsea replaced Pochettino with him, it felt like a gamble. A young coach with a very specific style stepping into one of the most chaotic projects in football. Realistically, it could have gone either way. But from the moment that the Italian Lex Luthor arrived, you could tell that he was different. He brought his own energy, his own vision, and it clicked with Chelsea's young squad pretty much right away. Since he used to be an academy coach at Manchester City, Maresca didn't see their age as a weakness. He literally told the players that being young made them dangerous. That way they could be the fittest team, the hungriest team, and the most fearless. And he wasn't lying. Chelsea often fielded a starting 11 with an average age of around 23, sometimes even younger. They basically rolled out the youngest Premier League team ever and told the rest of the league, deal with it. Tactically, Maresca brought the Pep influence that everyone expected. Possession, inverted fullbacks, building from the back, pressing, but it wasn't a copy-paste. He added his own twists. His style had more aggression, more freedom for the attacker. It was like Pep ball, but with a shot of Red Bull. Chelsea also helped him make smart signings. Pedro Neto came in and immediately gave the attack some Premier League experience. Cole Palmer, who wasn't a new signing, went up another level under Maresca. He became the team's main creator. Now you have other players who've come in like Joao Pedro and Estevao. Not to mention that Reece James has been the fittest he's ever been under Maresca. The start of the 2024-2025 season wasn't perfect though. Chelsea lost 2-0 to Man City on opening day, and people immediately started doubting the decision to hire Maresca. But instead of panicking, he doubled down on his ideas. After that game, he even said that Chelsea were similar if not better than City in certain phases. He of course actually ended up being right that season, and whether or not people agreed or not with him at the time, it gave the players massive belief. As the season went on, Chelsea climbed up the table. They put together some nice unbeaten stretches. At one point, they were the only team competing with Liverpool, and by spring, they were right in the mix for the top 4. They eventually finished 4th and qualified for the Champions League, which is crazy when you remember that the team had finished 12th just 2 seasons earlier. But it wasn't just about getting UCL. It was also impressive how Chelsea were playing. They were beating big teams again. They were putting on some incredible performances. I mean, what these guys did to Spurs, it was beautiful to watch. Sure, they weren't perfect. They were still inconsistent. They still are inconsistent. But the ceiling was very clear. On their day, these guys can beat anyone. And then came the trophy. The Conference League wasn't exactly the competition that Chelsea fans were dreaming about, but Maresca treated it like it was the Champions League. Chelsea went all the way to the final, smashed Real Betis 4-1, and lifted the trophy. Yes, it might have been the 3rd tier of European competition, but for a young squad trying to build confidence, it was massive. People forget, but a lot of players on that Chelsea squad had never won an actual trophy before. It was also Chelsea's first trophy in a while, and it completed a cool bit of history. They became the first club ever to win all 5 major European trophies. Then, the Club World Cup happened, and that's when everything exploded. This was a new tournament, but it wasn't some small tournament. It had some of the best clubs from every continent, and Chelsea somehow made it to the final against Paris Saint-Germain, the Champions League winners, and the best team in the world at the time. Those Eiffel Tower loving freaks were chasing 7 trophies. They were stacked with stars. They had the Ballon d'Or winner. Everyone expected Chelsea to just get rolled over. Instead, Chelsea absolutely destroyed their croissant lovers. A 3-0 win. 3 goals before halftime. A total domination. It was a full-on tactical masterclass from Maresca. Chelsea pressed PSG to death. They went man-to-man all over the pitch and never let any of their big names breathe. Cole Palmer, of course, stole the show with 2 goals and an assist. Pedro Neto did unbelievable defensive work on Hakimi. Gusto destroyed Nuno Mendes. Joao Pedro looked like Ronaldinho. And Caicedo ate up the entire PSG midfield. It was the kind of performance that made other teams sit up and say, oh damn, this Chelsea team is actually dangerous again. As a result, Chelsea were Club World Cup champion, their second trophy under Maresca within months. A team that had been mocked and doubted was suddenly lifting silverware on the world stage. Now you better have been wearing a Chelsea jersey when they won. If you don't have one, get yourself one from buygamejerseys.com and use code PETTALKS at checkout. By the end of 2025, Chelsea had won 2 trophies, finished top 4 and built a reputation again. But then it was all gone.
First time in Premier League history that a manager has left his job on New Year's Day.
Chelsea Football Club and head coach Enzo Maresca have parted company.
The 2025-2026 season was a confusing one. Maresca was under serious pressure at Chelsea before deciding to walk away. On November 22nd, 2025, Chelsea were only 3 points behind Arsenal at the top of the table. Fast forward a few weeks, and they're well behind the league leaders. The performances over the holiday period made things worse. Home games against Aston Villa and Bournemouth were flat, slow, and lacked intensity. Stamford Bridge could feel it too, and the fans made their feelings clear.
He's just a wannabe Pep, isn't he? He's just a fake Pep. Like, I can't, like, and at least, like, Arteta's a good fake Pep. But this guy's just, he's clueless. And to make it even worse, Arsenal being beaten Villa. So, there you go.
Maresca was booed when he took Cole Palmer off against Bournemouth. And then he was booed again at full time before the 2-2 draw. These little moments matter, because at Chelsea, once the crowd turns, things can unravel quickly. Earlier in the season, Maresca and Chelsea looked untouchable. They beat Barca 3-0, were playing confident football, and looked like a team heading in the right direction. But since then, there were a lot of damaging defeats, including losses to Leeds, Atalanta, and Aston Villa. Those dragged Chelsea into a slump. And then off the pitch, things were not calm, because earlier in December, after beating Everton, Maresca made the comments that raised a lot of eyebrows. That was when he made the worst 48 hours of his time at Chelsea comment, suggesting that many people were not supporting him or the team. He never named the names, but it was clear something wasn't right behind the scenes. As I stated earlier, those comments didn't help. At Chelsea, the head coach is expected to work within a strict structure. You're not the manager with full control. You're a part of a system run by a sporting director and ownership above you. If the structure isn't united, problems usually show up on the pitch. According to Sky Sports, there was a real feeling that internal issues were affecting the results. Chelsea clearly have talent. The performances against Barca, Liverpool, and Arsenal prove that. But people behind the scenes felt that Maresca wasn't getting the best out of his squad. You could feel the disconnect at Stamford Bridge. Some fans were never convinced by Maresca even after he won 2 titles. Others felt that he was already helping the club punch above their weight, given that despite their vast amount of spending, Chelsea didn't actually have that many world-class players. There were some tactical concerns too. Chelsea made 55 lineup changes this season. Only Wolves had made more. Now some of that was down to injuries and a young squad, but not all of it. Consistency had been missing, and Chelsea were also lacking control in games they should have been winning. They dropped 15 points from winning positions this season, which is a massive issue. Interestingly, winter had been a problem under Maresca before. Last season, Chelsea only won 2 league games between mid-December and late February. Weeks ago, Chelsea were considered to be in the title race. Now they were fighting just to get a Champions League spot. That swing shows you how quickly things have fallen apart. Now many people assumed Maresca would be able to rebuild the club, that he would turn it around and have Chelsea competing again, especially since they still had the Champions League, Carabao Cup, and FA Cup to play for. Given how well Chelsea play in knockout tournaments, there was still a lot left in the season to fight for. But that window closed when Maresca decided to walk away. Will Liam Rossinier be the savior? Only time will tell, but his journey to becoming a Chelsea manager is a very interesting one. To see his path to Stamford Bridge, you have to watch this video right here.